Welcome to Planet Indiana.
Dilly dilly.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this spooktacular podcast. My name is Morgan Marchie, and today's podcast is sponsored by Planet Indiana's podcasting channel. I wanted to start off by thanking them for letting me use their podcasting equipment. I also have a few of the Planet Indiana podcasting crew here with me today.
Brady Cole.
Ruger Gill.
Thank you guys again for letting me use your podcasting equipment.
No problem.
So today I'm here to talk to you all about a spooky story. I know, and I was wondering if you guys have ever heard about it. It's not a ghost story, but in fact an urban legend. What is an urban legend, you might ask? Well, an urban legend is a humorous or horrific story or piece of information circulated through true, especially one perpetrating to involve someone vaguely related or known to the teller.
Ooh, sounds interesting. Tell me more.
Usually urban legends are shared through the word of mouth. That is why so many stories' details end up getting twisted and changed because of how often it is passed down. Do you guys know any urban legends that you're willing to share?
We know a boatload of them.
Like Stiffy Green.
Yeah, Stiffy Green. We go out at Halloween time every year and
Spook
do.
hunt.
Yeah, we go do participate in the urban legend, I guess, in hopes to see whatever's happened in the areas like
Spooklight Hill.
Spooklight Hill, yeah, and
Brazil?
Hell's Gate in
Yeah.
Brazil, Indiana. Not the country. Gotta renew my passport. But no, so yeah, we know all about it.
That's interesting. I know an urban legend, and it's absolutely one of my all-time favorites. Now, don't think of this in the wrong way, guys, but it's called Humans Can Lick Too. Have you ever heard of it?
Can't say I have.
I can't say I have either.
Okay, so I heard this story from my older brother Corey when he was trying to spook me one night. This is how it goes. One night, a young woman lived alone with only her dog. She was watching the night news that was covering a story of an escaped murder convict from the local prison in her town. Worried as she was, she turned the television off and locked all her doors and decided to go to bed. Right before she went to bed, she would let her hand hang down on the side of her bed to let her dog lick it. She woke up in the middle of the night to a strange dripping sound coming from outside her room. She got up and went to the bathroom and turned off the faucet as tight as she could to make sure it wasn't that. As she went back to bed, she let her dog lick her hand again, and right as she was dozing off, she heard the strange dripping noise again. She got up and went to her kitchen to turn the sink faucet off, and again turned it as tight as she could to make sure there was no water leaking from the sink. She went back up to her room and again let her hand hang down to let her dog lick her hand. The strange dripping noise continued after she had turned off all the faucets in her house, so her other option was to go outside and turn the water off for the entire house. She came back inside, went up to her room, laid down, and one last time let her dog lick her hand. The dripping noise was very faint, and she was very confused on how there was still a dripping noise, if the water had been shut off. She got out of her room and just listened to see where she could find the sound was coming from. She heard it coming from somewhere in her kitchen. As she listened, it was coming from her cabinet, and as she got closer, the louder the dripping noise became. She opened her cabinet only to find her dog hanging there bleeding out, and written in blood on the cabinet door was "Humans Can Lick Too." Pretty spooky, right?
Yeah, very spooky.
Weird.
Yeah, at first I thought that maybe she needed to take this issue up with her plumber. But no, this is she may need to take this issue up with her priest instead.
Gets holy.
That's a doozy. Yeah, no. I guess humans can lick too at the end of the day.
Now, might I say, that woman has a lot of cojones to keep getting up to find where the noise is coming from, and to even go to the extent of going outside to turn the water off for the entire house. At first, when I heard this story, I thought, well, where the woman went wrong was going outside to turn the water off. That's how the murderer got into her house. But then I remembered she had already heard the dripping sounds before all that, so he got in some other way. How do you guys think an intruder can get into someone's house while being wide awake and them not knowing an intruder is inside?
I'm sure that he was wearing stealthy shoes, maybe sneakers. Other than that, I don't know. Who knows?
He
Maybe.
cut the fingertips or the pads off of his fingers. And
Yeah.
he watched their routine every day. And then finally just made his move.
Ooh.
Said, I'm coming in.
Yeah.
It's my
He
time to shine.
Broke into her car months in advance, stole her garage door opener, came back, opened the garage and walked
When
in
they're
the
away
house.
at work, hid in the attic, and then they went in the house.
Or, plot twist, M. Night Shyamalan, this whole story, it wasn't the murderer. It was just a ghost in the house.
Ooh,
Because
spirit.
she heard the dripping too. It was the curse of Mario, the deceased plumber.
Okay, you guys have made some pretty good points, but have you thought about how that he had just escaped from prison that night?
This is a good point.
Were there teardrops on his face?
You gotta
I
think.
couldn't tell you what he looked like.
Yeah, Michael Myers gets around awfully fast, and he only walks. So
And he's pretty stealthy.
He's got some quick feet, guys.
I think I don't know if he's just sprinting in between or what, but anything's possible.
You're right. You're right. There's so many different versions of this story. I recently asked Tessa, you guys know Tessa,
Yeah.
if she's ever heard of the story, and her reaction was, I thought I was the only one who knew that story. I asked her to share her version with me, and man, is it similar, but she does have quite a few differences. Tessa's version goes, one dark and stormy night, a woman lived alone with her dog. She was watching television when an emergency cover story of an escaped murder convict from the local prison in her town interrupted her program. Terrified, she turned off the television, locked all her doors, and went to bed. When she goes to sleep, she let her dog lick her hand, blah, 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 goes on and on and on. She first thought it was the ceiling that was leaking. And she had to patch up the ceiling, which I don't know how she does that. And, just like that, and then goes right back to sleep.
Handy woman.
She goes right back to sleep. And it ends the same way. But I thought in Tessa's version, the woman would confuse the dripping sounds with the rain. Would you guys disagree or agree?
Yeah, if it's a dark and stormy night, there's definitely going to be a tip-tap on the old roof there.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So, yeah, I can see that.
See, my thoughts exactly. I tried to see if I could find any stories that were similar or related to my story, and I found some about intruders mainly, which I found very interesting. The first story I found was called Don't Turn on the Light. Honestly, one of the most known urban legends out there. If you haven't heard this story, you probably live under a rock. So, anywho, this story is about two roommates. One of the roommates ended up coming home late one night and didn't want to disturb her roommate's sleeping by turning on the light, so she left him off. The next morning, the one roommate woke up to blood smeared on the walls, saying, "Aren't you glad you didn't turn on the light?" What would you do in this situation? How would you react if one of you guys just came home and one of you guys were dead?
Move out
And
and leave all my stuff.
I'd probably scream. That would be my initial response. It's a very high-pitched squeal, followed by, who's gonna clean this mess up? I'm joking. I'm joking. No, it would be a very traumatic experience. I would imagine.
I feel like
couldn't imagine.
I would never be able to live with anyone again, and I'd move back in with my parents and never leave because how traumatized I am.
Yeah, that's. Yeah.
Another eerie story that I found was called The Case of the Choking Doberman. This story begins like this. Two family members come home one night to their dog choking on something. One of the family members calls the family vet, and the vet agrees to meet with them for an immediate surgery. The vet then comes up to the owners and says, "Did you get him?" Confused, one family member responds, "Get who? What are you talking about?" The vet then states, "Your dog was choking on a human finger. Did you get him?" Later it comes to find out the intruder was hiding in their bedroom. Now, Brady, what if you came home to Juju choking on someone's finger? After you get the finger out, obviously, what would you do?
Move. Like, I wouldn't have anything to do with that. What, is the intruder still there?
Most likely. Like, you came home and then he's
do I
still
live
there.
alone, or do I have roommates?
Sure, you could have roommates.
We'd already probably be dead by that point.
I hope not.
I
Honestly, I would grab my dog and run out the door. I don't want to deal with anybody that's like that. Like, just Leave
the
me alone.
police.
Yeah, call the police after I'm gone. And just let them go in by themselves, because I don't want to be here.
Yeah, that's wise.
That's why.
That's wise. Yeah, that's a sticky situation. I don't know. Then your dog has a taste of like human flesh.
Put the house on the market next
Yeah.
day.
Yeah,
All
it's
furnished.
just all kinds of weird.
Includes the furniture.
I'm noticing a tendency that dogs seem to be reoccurring in these stories.
No,
It's really making me rethink
Yeah.
having a
The more-
dog. Not only a black dog, but a dog.
A dog named Juju. I mean, the moral of this story may be just don't own a dog. Or
Named
bad things will
Juju.
happen. Yeah, bad juju will come if you own a dog. I don't know, but this is where I'm starting to lean towards.
I totally agree with what you're saying. Gotta find those dog stories, man.
The Snippy Green was a dog too.
Yeah, there was a dog too.
Okay, we'll get to that soon because I want to hear about that. Another story I found was like my story. It's called The Babysitter and the Man Upstairs. Again, another well-known urban legend. This story goes, a woman was babysitting late at night and she was receiving random strange phone calls. The first phone call was at 10 o'clock. When the babysitter picked up the phone, before she could say anything, she heard a man laugh hysterically and hung up. Confused but not bothered, she returned to the couch to keep watching TV. 10:30 p.m. rolls around and the phone rings again. The sitter picks up and the man says, "I'll be there soon." He laughed and then hung up. She was a little nervous when the phone call happened, so she checked to see if every door was locked, then went upstairs to check on the children. Both children were fast asleep, and the sitter's nerves started to calm down a little. She returned to the couch and watched TV. About 11 o'clock, the phone rings again. The sitter picks up the phone and says, "Hello?" The man responds, "One more hour." He laughs and hangs up. The sitter trying to shake her nerves by assuming it's only a prank call. 11:30 comes around, the phone rings once more and the man says, "Pretty soon now," laughed again and hung up. The sitter, very uncomfortable, calls the operator and complained about receiving these strange phone calls. The operator told her to call back if it happened again, and she would try to trace the call. Once it hit midnight, the phone rang again and the sitter answered it. Very soon, the man said. He laughed and hung up. The sitter called the operator. The operator said, "The person is calling from a telephone upstairs. You better leave. I will get the police." The sitter quietly grabbed the two children, and just as they were about to leave, a door upstairs swings open. A man they have never seen before started to come down the stairs toward them. As they ran from the house, the man was smiling in a strange way. A few minutes later, the police found him and arrested him. Okay, so my issue with this story is, why didn't the babysitter call the police in the first place when she first was receiving these random phone calls? If I was babysitting and I was receiving these phone calls, 1, I would call the police. 2, disconnect the phone so I can't receive these calls anymore. And 3, get out of the house. You got it twisted if you think I would have calmly stayed in the house after those phone calls. What would you guys do?
You've got to think, too. She's got the responsibility of watching these kids. You know, she's getting paid, probably a young girl, I would imagine, if she's babysitting. So she's watching these kids. This is her. She's got to make that bread. She's got to go to Coachella this summer and stuff. So she's trying to, find that toast. And anyway, so she's watching these kids. You can't scamper out after a few phone calls. You got to hang in there. It's like, where do I go? I can't just take the kids, scoot out the house.
That makes sense. I get where you're coming from. Anyways, thank you for tuning into this podcast. Once again, I am Morgan Marchi.
Brady Cole.
Ruger Gill.
And don't forget that just because it's an urban legend doesn't mean that it's not true. Think about that.